It's Tuesday, January 10th, 2012. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, Eclipse, the board game.
Let's do this.
Oh my gosh, we haven't done a show in for fuck ever.
But we have returned. Geeknights is not over. When will it be over?
When one of us dies.
You think so? Like,
Nah.
we'll be 50-year-old men?
I'll put it
still
this way.
doing
If you die, I'll keep doing the show.
Great, thanks.
But if I die, will you keep doing the show?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Eventually it will return.
You might have to learn some audio editing.
Eh, we'll see.
All right. But we're back. Geeknights is back on its regular, semi-permanent schedule until other conventions get in the way.
PAX East.
PAX East is coming, and speaking of which, PAX East is sold out. So if you didn't do what we said,
Why
and buy
didn't
a
you do what we
badge,
said? We always steer you right. When have we steered you wrong?
the fucking day that PAX East badges went on sale, you should have bought them. It's
If you
been
didn't-
many days since then. You have no excuse. There's
Yeah.
no badges.
At this point, it's not even going to be like I'm trying to teach you a lesson anymore. Now, I'm just going to admonish you. It's like, well, you deserve it, you dumbass.
However, if you did not get a badge and you need a badge, one way to do this is to submit a panel or lecture and get it accepted.
Or become
Odds are
an
low.
enforcer.
Odds are low of that. Another way is to buy an exhibitor table. That gives you a bunch of badges. It also costs thousands of dollars.
Depends on the size of the table.
Depends.
If you got
but
an indie video game to pimp, the price is significantly lower.
the
From what I
bigger
hear.
table you get, the more badges it comes with.
That is also true.
Actually, I don't have the price sheet for this year. I should get that.
It also gets you in the exhibitor room slightly early.
Slightly.
While you're setting up your shit, you can look at everyone else's shit.
Or, as Scott was alluding to, you can sign up to be an enforcer.
That's a good move.
They need enforcers for PAX East, and let me tell you, I've been staff for anime cons, video game cons, gaming cons, generic cons that aren't genericon, and PAX pretty much has the best deal for staff in terms of responsibility versus fun versus respect.
Versus reward.
Ah.
Eland.
Well, now, see, the thing is, before, the reward ratio was kind of skewed, because you could spend some dollars to get a PAX badge, or you could enforce and get in for free but have to work a whole bunch. Now, it's either enforce or don't fucking go to PAX.
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna enforce though and try to, get in that way, only do it if you're actually gonna be serious and do a good job of the enforcing. Don't try to enforce just to get a badge and then do a shit ass enforce because
Yeah, if you
Robert
think-
Koo will come and kick you in the dick.
If you think you can pull off what most anime cons pull off, you get to be a quote-unquote gopher and do some grunt work, and then you're in now. You've pretty much got to be a badass to be an enforcer.
Yeah, you can go watch. There's a recent Penny Arcade television episode about enforcers. Go watch that shit. And then decide if that's for you.
Yes, if Aaron C. looks like a man that you can respect and take orders from, then
I
you're...
think he's identified in the video as Airwolf.
The thing is, you know what he's identified as? The man who looks smashing in a real kilt. Not a utility kilt, a kilt.
That's right. Anyway.
But yeah, PAX East, it's coming. It's coming. We'll be there doing stuff.
Why are you going to Meta Moment and open event?
Because it's sold out,
Sure.
as was expected. There's one other bit I do want to talk about, though. PAX East is sold out. You're going to see a lot of people at the con and on Craigslist selling PAX badges.
Do not buy.
The odds are, I'm going to say, pretty much like 70% that if someone tries to sell you a badge and they aren't someone you know,
And they're not selling it through an official channel, or they're not being cool on
They
like,
won't
the
show
Penny
you
Arcade.
ID.
They're not
They're-
on the Penny Arcade forum.
like you don't have evidence that they're a gamer who legitimately like had a reason now he can't go, it's probably counterfeit. We're going to make a video later because I've got, in fact, in front of me, a small pile of counterfeit badges from the last PAX.
And they're not going to let you the fuck in.
And you know what?
So you're going to buy a hotel room in Boston, travel there, try to go in, and they're going to say, fuck no, get the hell out of here.
Because I'll tell you what, if I see a counterfeit badge, I'm just going to tear it in half and keep walking. Because you know what? Here's how to tell a counterfeit badge. You can tear them in half.
Yeah.
If you can't tear it in half, it's probably
But
legit.
but accordingly, I have received information that this year they are still mailing badges, which will give counterfeiters time to copy them. But they have taken measures. They said this. They're taking some measures. We do not know what measures they are to make it harder to counterfeit. So I imagine the badge is going to be harder to copy.
The thing is, once we knew there were counterfeit badges, like once we knew that was the thing and someone showed us one, you could pretty much spot them a mile away. Like, there's one, there's one, there's one.
Yep.
And I have it on good authority, but this is no way official. This is just me hearsaying from other people who may or may not know things, that there will be no succor for people who have a counterfeit badge.
I thought it was
You will not be
sucker.
let in. If you were caught with it, they're probably just going to take the badge away, and you're fucked.
Anyway. So, news that's not meta moment news.
All right, you got
so
some
we're not
news?
talking about any PAX in the meta moment now.
Nope.
Okay, so if you do not know, right, Kotaku, which is a blog that is much maligned because it is on the Gawker network,
But at the same time, it's pretty good.
well, I read it only because it's one of the only gaming blogs that has actual people, mainly one person, Brian Ashcraft, in Japan, and they post a lot of posts that aren't even about games and stuff a lot of times, but are about Japanese things that aren't really posted on other English language gaming blogs, such as they'll have like cosplay photos from Comic Cat, or they'll have something about like, you know, some idol who's playing some video games, or this crazy game is coming out in the arcades in Japan, like Gundam Pods. You won't see that shit on Joystick or IGN or pretty much anywhere, right?
Yep.
So that's why I still reads the Kotaku. But the guy, the number one guy, at least at Kotaku, is Brian Crescenti, and he was a pretty good guy. Pretty good guy. But he left. And he didn't say where he was going. But the next day, the news came out, apparently. There's some company called Vox. I don't know much about them. But what they did is they have pulled the ultimate coup in the world of games journalism. They went and they got Chris Grant. Chris Grant was like the number one guy at the Joystick, from what I heard, right?
Yep.
Then they went out and they got Justin McElroy, also a guy who was from GamePro, PC Gamer,
Wow,
PlayStation
getting
Magazine.
two really good legendary guys is pretty good, isn't it?
Then they got Brian Crescenti from Kotaku. Then they got Russ Pitts, who was from Gamers at Jobs. I used to listen to his podcast, the Gamers at Jobs Radio, when
That's
it existed.
4.
And he used to be the editor-in-chief of The Escapist. So he's one of the awesomest. Russ Pitts is like probably the awesomest on the list. Then they got Chris Planty, who is a guy who did a bunch of stuff, Escapist, Joystick.
5.
He was this games editor at UGO.com. They got Rush Frushtick, who's from MTV News and a whole bunch of other things.
6.
They got Arthur Gies, the previews editor at Joystick, the co-host of Rebel FM.
7.
And Griffin McElroy, who has been writing about games for 7 years. He was a contributing editor at Joystick. And
Wait,
a whole
just
bunch
got
of
8 people.
Gaga. They got they pretty much went out and they stole the A-list guys from every team. This is a Yankees situation. All the free agents, just get the best guy in every team and put them all in one gaming blog. The blog doesn't exist yet, but when it does, it's going to be the gaming blog. You can just delete Joystick from your RSS reader.
Now, this
and you can
tells
filter
us,
Kotaku so that you only see the post by Brian Crescenti. I mean, not Brian, Ashcraft.
so this tells us something very interesting, though. I mean, we make fun of video game journalism a lot because it's kind of crappy by and large.
The main
but there's-
problem I have with game journalism is that there are plenty of good game journalists, and a lot of these people have excellent journalism skills, and they have plenty good web journalism skills, and a lot of them have a lot of knowledge of recent games, which are the ones they talk about the most.
Yep.
So they do a good job. The problem is very few of these people, actually have a deep knowledge of games, period. So their perspective is just like, hey, a new game came out. Is it fun? And it's like a lot of people, that's what they want, but it's so shallow. And, the real meat is someone who actually, Totillo, who just took over for Kotaku because Crescente left, right? He's the perfect example. Excellent journalism skills. I've met him. He's a nice guy. He's well-meaning. But he just doesn't have game knowledge. I know 10 times more about games, at
So
least.
why aren't we
than he
doing
does.
game journalism?
I
Oh,
don't
we
have
are.
journalism
shittily.
skills. Don't have journalism skills.
But this
I
tells
only
us a
have
couple
game
things.
knowledge.
The most interesting thing to come out of this is that, we make so much fun of video game journalism. The fact that this coup was possible means that there either aren't non-competes in that industry,
Well, clearly.
or that people are betting that nobody has the wherewithal to follow through on them. And that is a sign of a very immature industry, which means that this is a major turning point, because now in the future in this industry, there's going to be a whole bunch of non-compete BS, which will actually make it more difficult for anyone to compete with this new offering.
Well, I think what it's shown more than anything, right, is something that I knew but I didn't realize. It's like, oh, I knew that, but you didn't think
Is
about
this
it.
the opposite of the Peter principle?
No, which is that in the, if you look at, for example, the newspaper world, right, very few people pay attention to who the writer is on newspaper articles, right? It's about the name of the newspaper. It's like, oh, it's an article in the New York Times about the blah, 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 right? In game journalism, it's all about the person who is doing the reviewing, because it's not about where they are.
Now,
what
here's
they're
something
writing
interesting. It's not just game journalism. Anime journalism is the same way.
Yep.
And actually, anecdotally, Kineticon, right? We run the panels department at Kineticon, all the panels and workshops. And the biggest question we got last year was people who didn't, the schedule was out, all the titles, everything was there, but they wanted to know, I want to see the panel by Joey Jojo.
Yep.
I don't care what it's on. I want to see panels by this guy, this
This
group.
is because the internet, in the social media especially, you're not connecting with the brand, right? You're connecting with this, because when brands advertise themselves and market themselves these days, a lot of them are just so corporate and have corporate speak, and you're not actually connecting with them. For example, Hasbro, right? It's like, we are announcing the blah, blah, blah. It's like, great, thanks, guys. But the individuals, when they're allowed to have the Twitter account that's associated with their whatever, you connect directly with the people doing the thing. And especially in journalism, where pretty much they're tweeting and Facebooking like crazy more than any other industry, right? The consumers of the media are connecting with directly the producers and authors of the media.
So this allows another principle to take fold to a degree that you can't see in technology. We always talk about how in technology firms, if there's a critical mass of smart people, then dumb people will be weeded out, and that company will attract more smart people because smart people like to work with smart people. They don't like to deal with BS.
I think the only reason that any of these journalists need to team up at all, right? Because they could all just start their own blogs and forget working for anyone.
But with their power combined.
But by combining, they can sell, they can get more hits on the same page on the web internets and they can sell that one ad for more dollars than they could if they sold 5 ads that had 1/5 as many hits.
But in technology, the opposite is true.
They can also, the rate of content production. If you have one blog by yourself, you get an article a day. But if you get a blog with 8 people, you can get a whole bunch of articles per day.
But back to my point, the opposite is true. A place that has a critical mass of bad people will drive smart people away. But it's a slow process because it's hard to change jobs in a lot of industries. It so happens that this relatively immature industry, especially with the fact that you don't need an office to a degree.
These are all work-from-home people who just send articles in and someone puts them in a blog somewhere.
The cost of distribution and collaboration, everything is so low that the barrier to switching jobs is almost zero.
Yep.
So as a result, all these factors combined, and I'm actually excited about this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finally having a
might
gaming
be.
blog that could potentially be better than all of the gaming blogs.
It might be bitter disappointment. You got to have guarded optimism.
I think it'll be probably the best. It looks like it's going to be the best gaming blog there is.
That's not saying a lot, but that's a high compliment.
Well, we need one because you look around and it's like, which one really stands out as great? I mean, there's some that are good, but they're only good in particular areas. Like, you can go to Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and they'll do a really good job on, like, indie PC games and not much else. But they do a really good job on that. Or you go to, like, Gama Sutra, and they'll do a really good job on some, like, in-depth stuff.
But, like, right now, how did I learn about the next news we're talking about? I saw it on Slashdot as an afterthought.
Right. But they won't really, be whatever.
So, speaking of the news I just saw on Slashdot, there's a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition coming.
Yeah, I saw like an inkling, like maybe one sentence
this
somewhere.
Came out of nowhere to me.
This is maybe on a Twitter. I saw a sentence, or maybe on a blog, a comment or something that was like, announcement something big. And I was like, whatever. And then suddenly I see, like, today or yesterday, like, 5th edition, and I'm like, what the fuck?
So, 2 interesting things. One, nobody in my circles was really talking about this.
Nope.
Despite the fact that we're pretty deep in the role-playing community.
Yeah.
Like, no one seemed to really notice. And 2, I want to point something out. I'm stealing from Nighthawk 214, who put this little list together. 1974, 1st edition.
That's right.
1989.
So that is 15 years.
2nd ed.
Okay.
2000, 3rd ed. That's when we played at
11 years.
RIT.
11 years. So it keeps getting shorter, less time between editions. 15, then 11.
Third and a half edition, sometime in between there. Fourth edition, 2008.
So 8 years. So 15, 11, 8.
What year is it?
2012.
So by this rate,
It's been 4 years.
in 40 years,
Is
there
it-
will
is
be a
it- is
new edition of Dungeons & Dragons
But-
every 16 seconds.
But is the 5th edition coming out this year or next year? I mean, this is just an announcement. I didn't get the feeling.
it's going to
that-
playtesting now.
Really, I was getting the feeling like that they didn't even start it yet. That they were just like, the announcement was like, we're going to make it. We're starting work now. No? That it's playtesting now?
They're taking submissions to do playtesting and stuff with them.
Oh, I thought the submissions we're looking for
Which
ideas.
is already-
we don't know
all
what
right,
the fuck
now-
to do.
I'm not one to be super like when 4th edition came out, I didn't like it, but at the same time, I didn't shit all over it because I thought my complaints were justified.
Well, it sort of made sense for the times, right? It's like, hey, they're making WoW the tabletop RPG. You know, no one feels useless.
It's a game where I
Because
look
in
at it.
3rd edition, you felt useless.
It's a
And
game where I look at it and say, here are problems, but those are only problems for X, Y, and Z kind of gamers. They're not problems for our kind of gamer, the letter R. So if our gamers want to play D&D 4th edition, it's exactly what they want. But 5th edition reeks of being the last edition. It reeks of failure right off the bat, and I'm really because one, here's something really interesting. I'm looking at the Slashshot comments, right? You think Slashshot's a pretty big haven of like old school D&D players. A lot of the comments here aren't even about the 5th edition announcement.
they're about Pathfinder.
No.
No?
There's one guy who's like, yeah, Pathfinder. Most of the comments and the follow-up discussion in other places is people saying, man, I always want to play D&D, but I can't find anyone to play with.
Yeah.
That today, that is still the primary complaint of RPG people, that they can't find someone to play with.
It's because the people who most want to play RPGs are the people who just don't talk to people. There is someone to play with in your town, even in the sticks.
Not always.
Almost always.
I think it's more that we're sheltered from that because if you live in a population center, it's absolutely guaranteed that there are gigantic groups of people. But at the same time, even at pretty hardcore events in New York City that we go to, most of the people there show up, live in the city, and say things like, yeah, I almost never get to play a role-playing game.
You gotta set time aside for that shit. Be consistent. Actually fucking show up and talk to people. Human beings.
But
I heard at Recess this week, and they're actually going to have a thing, like get together and, start games with people.
Yep, they're going to have open tables. They're going to set that up.
No,
There's
they're gonna have a thing that's like, hey, all you people get together and form gaming groups that will meet regularly on your own. Sort of like gamer dating, but not dating to go out.
We should do a show
dating.
about this because they're going to run into the problem they always run into. The majority of players want something very different from the majority of game masters, and there's already a shortage of game masters.
Players, just fucking GM. Jesus Christ.
Or you're going to have to play the weird indie games that the GMs all want to do. You can't, no one wants to run D&D for you.
You don't need someone to run D&D. Just take some fucking monsters, and the player and the GM are basically the same. You're just monster fighting. Play Descent instead.
But that is neither here nor there. But my worry is that the statements from Wizards of the Coast, aka
Wizards
Hasbro,
of the Coast.
about this, they seem to be talking about how they want the game to be more inclusive and more accessible.
How is it not inclusive or accessible?
I know, they've pretty much streamlined everything to the point where it's almost trivial to play. I mean, you could replace it with a computer game for the most part.
You could make it, like Inspectors, where it's a simple game where there's hardly any rules.
So they seem to be going down this path where they're going to have a simple rule set that then you add rules
I mean, are
to
they
it
going to make it like Ravenloft?
as you go along. Like, oh, I want more complex rules for fighting. Bam. I want more complex rules for X, Y, Z. Bam, bam,
Well,
bam.
this is the fundamental problem with D&D compared to other, any game out there is that they seem to have this business model they won't get away from, which is sell fucking tons of books, right? So we need to have a game that fits with the model of sell a lot of stuff and keep coming out with new stuff and keep selling more stuff. Every other RPG in the world is, I bought the book. I have the game now, right?
Here's a side analogy. This is a problem that Lego bricks have to this day. Pretty much every Lego brick in existence that wasn't eaten by a child or a dog is still in existence.
Yep.
They're pretty much indestructible. So there's a surplus of Legos. It actually becomes more and more difficult to sell regular Lego because most people have a collection from childhood still that they can give to their kids.
Yep.
But anyway, I want to read some quotes from the actual announcement. This is an official announcement from Hasbro Wizards of the Coast. We seek to build a foundation for the long-term health and growth of D&D, one rooted in the vital traits that make D&D unique and special.
It's not unique or special.
We want a game that rises above differences in play styles.
Okay.
All right, I got to interrupt there. That is the opposite of what you should say and do. You don't want a game that's so generic that it fits every play style.
Yeah, it's basically there isn't even any rules here. Here, I got it. I got the new edition of D&D. I found it. It's in my pocket. It's an index card. It says, "Tell stories with your friends about dragons and dungeons." Sometimes roll dice.
Yeah, see, sometimes roll dice is key because we did our panel and
you know what? That's the whole book, and then the rest is just expansions. Buy whatever expansions you want. They add rules.
They also want a game that rises above campaign settings and additions. One that takes the fundamental essence of D&D and brings it to the forefront of the game. In short, we want a game that is as simple or complex as you please. It's action focused on combat,
yep.
intrigue.
It's already focused on combat.
And exploration as much as you desire. Now, wait a minute. They said they want a game that transcends all differences in play styles that is focused on combat, intrigue, and exploration. These three specific things.
So it's not really, it's only focused on the combat, intrigue, exploration play style.
And they've already contradicted themselves. And again, transcend editions, yet they're calling it 5th edition, but they're talking about a long-term... So why didn't they call it final edition or
why don't they just call it Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. And maybe they brand it as the reboot, the Marvel
I have a feeling
whatever.
what it's going to be more like is it's going to be a lot like they're very successful, like Ravenloft and Charlatan, whatever board games.
I hate those games so much.
It's going to be that sort of simplified rule set.
Those are not by the definitions we use in lectures role-playing games. They're good games if you want that kind of thing.
They're going to take that simplified rule set. They're going to remove all the proper nouns and flavor, right, to create this sort of generic system. So it'll just be like, hey, to fight, roll numbers and dice. And then there'll be books that are like, okay, you want to do Forgotten Realms, or here are classes for Forgotten Realms.
I want to be a blade singer. Well, you better buy player's
right?
option and then this elf book.
Right, so here's a setting that actually here's a set of proper nouns if you want to play like this, and here's a set of proper nouns if you want to play like that. But all the rules are, here's the fight rule, here's the escape from things rule,
Scott,
and whether you're escaping from a dungeon of metal bars or a dungeon with laser shields in the spaceship, it's the same thing.
That's pretty crap because there are already systems that are like that, and generic rule sets with different proper nouns do not different games make by any stretch. There's no mechanism design. There's no you need gameplay that actually facilitates the kind of game you want to play.
Well, we know that.
But
they don't know that. And the people going to play this just want to fight things.
For the cost of what they're doing to make this mistake with D&D, they could probably buy half of the indie RPG intellectual property there is in the world and just release it all under their brand name.
But that means that 4th Ed made money, right? A lot of people are playing it.
But how much money did it really make? How many people do you know who pirated that shit?
Well, here's the thing. How much money did it make? Because if it was making more money, why would they be trying 5th edition? I think that a lot of people do play 4th edition because about as many as played 3rd. It feels like that anyway, based on just feeling, which is nothing.
Thing is, most people I see at gaming events are playing 3.5 or Pathfinder.
Well, I think that they are much less successful at selling the tons of extra books for 4th edition, which is the real reason they're doing 5th edition. Because even though people are playing 4th edition, they're not making more money off it. It's like they finished making money off it, and they can't get people to say buy another 4th edition supplement book for a new paladin, whatever, right? And they already did all the campaign settings they could do that people care about. And if they make up a new one, no one's gonna give a shit about it.
They're also listening
and
to
that's
forums.
why they've started making D&D board games like the Ravenloft and such, because they couldn't sell more 4th Ed books, so they have to go to 5th Ed
and
to
those
make
can't
more
be
money.
pirated that easily. I mean, they can be, but it's a pain in the ass.
The only way to make more money is to come out with another Ed so you can sell another book, because they need to make money every quarter because they're a business that's public.
They're also committed to getting playtesting and building by consensus and getting, criticism and
So
input.
it's going to be focused group to shit. That's like listening to what the people in the tribes and Counter-Strike forums say to do. Guess what? Counter-Strike didn't listen to the people, and they're still around. Tribes
Quote,
2 listen to the people, they're dead.
Quote, by involving you in this process, we can build a set of D&D rules that incorporate the wants and desires of D&D gamers around the world.
Yeah, listen, you don't... I think D&D needs to do the, Nintendo Blue Ocean, right?
Yeah.
Fuck the D&D gamer. You got to make something that the other people will do.
No, but then take D&D.
The D&D gamers will do it anyways.
Yeah, so take D&D and make the fucking beer and pretzels. That is what most people actually want out of D&D. Because I want to point out, at MAGFest, we were in this panel discussion on gamer motivations, and the whole thing got turned around when we asked the open question to the audience along the lines of, how many of you would want to play games where there is no conflict, where you don't actually want a test of skill or competition of any kind? We thought everyone in the room would say no. The majority of the people in the room said, yes, that's exactly what I want.
Yep.
D&D is kind of the same way. Look at role-playing. All the game masters want to run these crazy systems that do very specific cool things. The average player wants beer and pretzels D&D.
People do not actually, only hardcore people actually want to compete and test skills and battle for reals and have smart things. Most people just want to sit around and go, lol, 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 lol. I'm dumb and I don't care. Angry Birds, Farmville. Whee! They should make, in fact, that's what I think D&D should do if they want to sell a lot. Don't make WoW D&D, right? Make Farmville D&D.
Yep.
You just fucking level the shit up.
Oh my God, there's money in that.
Yeah.
But now, a quote, the D&D experience, which is an event, will be moving to Gen Con in 2013.
Okay.
So as the convention special this year, they'll be doing open playtesting. And then here's another bad quote. Through our website.
So you won't have to buy tickets at Gen Con specifically for the playtest?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Through our website, we will release a growing set of rules, classes, monsters, and other materials for your study and feedback.
So it's still based on classes and monsters. It's still D&D.
Well, they said it's still D&D. They want it to be uniquely still D&D while making it as generic and non-D&D as possible.
Okay.
Guys, you're fucking this up. I'm sorry. I have no choice but to shit all over this at this stage. So, things of the day. Why, Bidoof?
Why?
Why would you do this to me, Mr. Bidoof?
Oh, he's got a knife.
Oh my God, he threw it at me.
Oh, but he missed.
Bidoof.
He's got a gun.
I saw this a while ago, and it
Don't
was
even
funny.
know. I think that's enough.
It was funny, but I forgot about it.
Oh,
And then-
Bidoof. He's so angry. It's angry as
But then-
Bidoof's ever been.
Our friend Adam brought it up, and we remembered it. And it's this kind of slow burn video where you watch it. It's
You
pretty
don't need to
funny.
describe it. That's it.
No,
Just-
I got to explain something.
there's nothing to explain. Just
There's an
Bidoof.
interesting phenomenon you'll
Bidoof,
see.
why? Bidoof, the end. My thing of the day.
It's pretty funny, right? But as time goes on, you're gonna, it's a slow burn.
Rim, you're doing the dub this, explain the joke at the
and
end
it'll
of the
be
panel.
funnier and funnier the more you think about it.
Why'd you add another panel to that bad webcomic?
And I guarantee that within a few days, you will be doing the same thing that we did with Dinosaur Office,
Hey, why'd the chicken cross the road?
which is talking just like the guy who got fucked up
to get the other
by
side. Oh, you
Mr.
see, it's
Bidoof.
funny because the answer was obvious. You thought it was going to be like a joke answer.
Scott, where's
but
your
it
thing
was
of the day?
just
Come on.
The common sense thing. Why would it?
Come on, where's your thing of the day? Let's go.
So,
puff, puff, puff.
if you got an Apple computer, right, there's many ways to get softwares into it. You can do what I do sometimes, which is I have this modem cable, and it connects to a serial port in the computer. So the Apple thinks it's dialing the internets on a modem. Well, not the internets, but it thinks it's dialing a modem.
Internet.
Yeah, it thinks it's dialing the modem and receiving software, but really it's my computer sending the software, pretending to be a modem on a serial port, sending software to the Apple that's on a file on my hard drive.
Now, you kids are all thinking right now, why don't I do that to those ATMs that are plugged into a phone line? You know what? Yeah, go for it.
Well, the modem cable on an Apple II GS is like this weird connector. It's not a phone connector. But anyway. Another thing you can do is you can get floppy disk drives, either the 5 1/4 or the 3 1/2. You can also get hard drives. You can get all sorts of crazy shit, right? But one thing you could always do is do the tape recorder, where you get the tape recorder, you get software on an audio cassette, right? You type load, and you push play on the tape, and you wait for the tape to play, and then the software is loaded, right?
Yep.
And
Now-
that's just like the modem, like
You can even do that with the Atari. Like, I had a cassette that had a whole bunch of Atari games on it.
Yeah, it's just like, a modem, because it goes
Yep.
And if you basically put that tape in a regular
wonder
old
what
audio
format it
tape
uses.
player, that's what it sounds like. You know?
I don't actually know what format it uses. I imagine it's something like QAM, but I'm not sure.
Right,
I'll
so
look
check
it up
this
while
out.
you talk.
There's a website, ASCIIExpress.net/game-server. And what this website is a list of Apple II games. So you go down the list and you click on a game here, Horizon V. So I clicked on Horizon V and it loads. And
Wave file?
some WAV files and some Flash players. So what you can do is you can even get your iPhone or something, or your phone, or just your laptop or whatever. Go to this website, take a regular old 3.5-inch audio cable from your phone or whatever it is, audio device, turn the volume all the way up, connect it to the back of the Apple computer, the Apple II GS, type load, press play on your phone, and the game loads from the internet. So you can basically download games from the internet to play them on your Apple II immediately. And I have an Apple II, so I might do this shit. And there's a lot of fucking games here. A lot. Super Othello. Oh, shit, son. Stunt Cycle, Tron, Xevious, Penzate, O'Reilly's Mine.
All right, I found the
Ms. Pac-Man.
interface. It's actually pretty interesting how it works, and it's way simpler than I expected.
It's pretty simple. It's pretty much this noise for 1, this noise for 0.
The header consists of 10 seconds of a 770 hertz tone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'll link to this too, because it's pretty interesting.
All right. But yeah, I'm going to try this because I have an Apple II. If you don't have an Apple II, maybe try this with an Apple II emulator. It might work. Maybe it takes like audio input from the microphone and you can just do an analog hole situation.
Now, if you're hardcore, do a ROM hack on the audio to make the game different.
Yeah, download the WAV file and then write a program that will convert the WAV file into the floppy disk file that you could then take an image of to run in the emulator.
So, in the meta moment, we already talked about PAX, but suffice it to say, we will be at PAX East. Otherwise, we don't have any big conventions on the horizon. Anime Boston.
Same weekend as PAX East.
Same weekend as PAX East. There may or may not
In
be
the
a
same
shuttle
city.
between the two. And Anime Boston does have one advantage over PAX East. There are more better restaurants near it, but they cost more money.
But it goes later.
It does.
So when PAX is over at like 2 a.m., I think Anime Boston still might have some programming.
Yeah, that one part, remember, is 24/7.
A very small part.
Including, I believe, their tabletop.
Possibly.
Yeah. Might head over to Anime Boston for some tabletop at 2
Sure.
in the morning.
Sure.
But we'll be at both most likely, as long as we can arrange the schedules between the two.
Which might be difficult.
Yeah, but we're working with them. We're going to do our level best.
Other meta things. Nerd NYC Recess is this weekend.
This weekend, Scott has to do laundry and wash his hair, so he won't be there. But
My non-hair.
I will be there on Saturday
I also
only.
have to watch football.
Well, I might be there Sunday. I want to go skiing on Sunday, but it's like 50
It's not
degrees.
looking like you're going to shush
It's
anything.
not looking so good.
Unless you want to shush the grass.
Yeah, I went to the website for the mountain I want to go to. It was like primary surface, loose granular, which is code for shit. Secondary surface, dirt.
What do you mean secondary surface?
As in
what's ever under the snow?
No, so primary surface is like what's on most of the trails. Secondary surface is like what's on the rest of the trails that aren't as good as that one. It's like where it's worn down or on the edge cases, like what's the worst condition you're going to run into.
Yeah.
The secondary surface appears to be dirt as far as I can tell. Maybe grass.
We'll get those dirt skis.
Yeah, I've hit grass on my skis before. It's not pleasant. Usually you stop and then hit your face.
Your face. All right.
Otherwise, the book club book is still not 1, but 2 books.
That's right. It's The Little Prince. And also, the second book is Wind, Sand, and Stars, both written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm almost done.
The former is brilliant. The latter is breathtaking.
Yes.
I am very impressed with Wind, Sand, and Stars.
Are you done?
Mostly. I'm like 3/4 of the way through.
So we're both about 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not that long. It's just I've been so busy.
It's not that long,
And
I kept rereading 2 sections.
And the other thing is, like, I keep getting other stuff that I keep reading instead.
Drops of God,
Yeah,
maybe?
like that.
Yeah.
Let's do a show about that.
Yeah, we should.
Next one. Oh, we got to get those DC Comics out of the way. Then.
Oh, my gosh.
Then we'll
DC
friggin-
Comics, why? Why would you do this?
Why would you do this?
It is the angriest DC Comics has ever
Yes.
been. See?
They're
See?
up in the sky.
See? I told
What they're
you.
doing up in that cloud.
So Scott bought a game, and I just didn't even pay attention. I didn't notice this game came out or
Well,
anything.
I didn't know. All I noticed is in our forum, Timo was like, hey, my friend made a game called Eclipse. And he predicted that it would be pretty popular on Board Game Geek. And then I go check it out, and I'm looking around, and suddenly a lot of people are talking about this game. So a listener of our show who we know who's really cool had a friend who made a game that became ridiculously popular. And I'm like, whoa, it's so popular, right, that if I go on Board Game Geek...
It's an 8.53 out of 10 with over 1,000 rankings.
Oh my God, it is ranked number 14 on Board Game Geek.
It's number 2 in its theme
That's
and number
every
7
game,
in strategy
that's every
games.
game there is, period.
Now, this list is a little skewed because
has
Twilight
a total-
Struggle
yeah.
made its way to the top, and fuck that game.
The average rating for I think it has the number 1 average rating, period. Let me check this.
Yeah, this game is in the ranks of things like Agricola, Puerto Rico, Le Havre, Power Grid, Kalis, Seven
Okay,
Wonders,
it doesn't
El
have the
Grande.
highest average rating because there's a whole bunch of games that have a single rating of 10.0.
Race for the Galaxy T&E, some of the best games ever made. It is already up there, and you know what? It's pretty justified.
Yeah, I put this game, having only played it 3 times, right? I put this game as my number 3 game currently.
Now, I want to preface this very clearly. This game has some random bullshit in it.
That's why it's number 3.
And as a result, it gives me the visceral enjoyment of like war games and such, but also with the mind feel. I've decided I'm going to start using that term. You know how people, when they review food, they're like the mouth feel? So the mind feel. And you know what I'm talking about. This feels in my mind mostly like either a German board game or Master of Orion.
I guess you could say that.
Yeah. So what is Eclipse other than the biggest fucking game we own?
So it's not the
Physically,
biggest game we own. It
that
just
we
takes
play?
a lot of table space.
Name a bigger game we own that we play.
Well, I mean, as in terms of table space?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because Shogun has more pieces.
But it's not bigger, space-wise.
The box is bigger.
Box is bigger, game not bigger.
Anyway,
Battle Masters, I guess.
we don't own Battle Masters.
I do.
Okay. Battle Masters is the biggest game there is. man.
Yes.
So here's the deal with Eclipse, right? It is Master of Orion, the board game. And it plays sort of mostly like a German board game, right? On your turn, you take an action and you go around taking actions, sort of like, Ticket to Ride or Puerto Rico or any of those games or Kalis, right? On your turn, you take an action. On your turn, you take an action. You go around and eventually you pass and eventually everyone passes. And you manage resources, you get victory points in order to win. It's not about who can conquer the galaxy or whatever. It's just get victory points to win. The game is 9 rounds exactly. So you know how long it's going to take. It takes a half hour per person, but that assumes setup time and learning time, which can be quite long depending. And basically, it's totally awesome, except for, right, the thing that makes it not German is that you have space combat. And space combat is a lot like combat in a lot of other, war games.
But
it's very risk-ish.
Here, I'm going to sell you on the space combat right now. The way this works, and this is what made this game awesome for me. You've got 4 classes of ships. 3 of them are ships, and one's the space station that can't move.
Starbase.
You play inventory Tetris. Well, basically, in this case, it's upgrade Tetris.
XCOM.
Yeah, so the little ship, if you build 10 of them, they all have the same loadout, which is matching whatever loadout you've built on your character sheet. They come with like one kind of engine, one kind of gun, and you can put shit in this extra space. You can upgrade stuff. It's pretty flexible in what you want to build, and that alone is way fun.
Yeah, and what's really it's also like incredibly like tense because you'll be sitting there ready to go into battle and you're like, I got this. The other guy upgrades his shit. And it's like, oh, that completely changed the odds. I don't got this.
The first game.
So now it's like, well, should I build more ships or upgrade my ships? Will that make it a winnable battle? And like there was the greatest thing happened like in the last game I played. It was a 3-player game and that I won. Me and Pete were like he was in the middle and I was just outside the middle, right? And I'm building up a big army and he's building up a giant army, just 2 adjacent hexes all in. And it's like putting in more ships, more sugar.
That's a lot of ships.
Upgrade the ships, antimatter cannons,
Pinkie
boom, boom,
pie.
boom, make them real big. And then it's pretty much like, I was pretty much like, well, I just had to put enough in there that he wouldn't attack me. I wasted only 1 action to bluff to make it look like I was going in no matter what so that he would waste actions defending. And then I use the remaining actions to get victory points elsewhere because you win with victory points. It's not Shogun. You don't win by killing the other guy, even though that could get you some victory points. You win with victory points. I just explored some new space and got points elsewhere. And then it was just like, oh, that's it.
The only game I ever played, I won, and I did the same thing. Someone was going to attack me, like pretty much straight up.
Run away.
No, I upgraded a bunch of ships and kind of like menaced him a little bit. And that caused a standoff, and then I just farmed victory points elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because everyone's actually really afraid to lose their ships.
Yeah, well, the thing is, right, is that, despite, the fact that you can get victory points in so many different ways that you don't even need to do ships, is that if someone comes on you with ships, they can take away, right, number one, your hexes. Every hex that you control is worth at least 1 victory point. So having less hexes under your control is bad. Number two, when you lose hexes, the cubes on the board that are on that hex come off, and that makes you weaker, which makes it harder for you to do anything, right? And number three, if you lose all your hexes, then you're out of the game, basically.
So the first game of this I played, when I say mouthfeel, there's one other feel that I got a little bit, but it might have been circumstantial, and that was our old BattleTech days, because we started that game of Eclipse after midnight at MAGFest, and we stopped at 5 in the morning.
We stopped at 4 something and got
we
to bed at
4:45 or so.
Yeah, we got to bed at 5 something.
I tweeted my victory at 5:15 before I took a shower and passed out.
Yeah, that's about right.
It was a pretty good game, though. So rather than,
But if you think about it, right, 6 people, right, playing, half hour each, it's 3 hours.
Teaching, we had to add in.
Teaching and setting up, so it took us 3 hours and change. We started at 1 something and we ended at 4 something.
So we're not going to explain the rules because you can read the rules and play the game. But
on the internets.
I think we can bring up all the individual interesting mechanics.
Here's the number one
great ones.
Here's the number one awesome thing that I was like, oh shit, son, right? The cubes. You have these tracks on your board that have cubes covering them completely. And it tells you how much money, how much science, and how much materials you make. Money's used for actions, and science used for science upgrades, and materials used to build ships. And basically, as your empire grows, you put cubes on the board. They're population cubes. So when you put a science population cube on the board, right, that decreases the number of population cubes on your personal board. So the number on your personal board that's bigger is now revealed because you remove the cube.
So think about the elegance of this. Rather than most games that involve exploration and exploitation, you will get a space and then get points out of it every round to spend. This is the same mathematical mechanic, but the mechanism of doing it in the board game is taking one cube off of your board and putting it on the space. Giving away cubes is tantamount to getting resources regularly. It's brilliant.
The physicality is reversed. Normally, in another game, it would be like, you got science points. Here, take a fistful of science points.
This physical, or it would have, dials and sliders.
This is like, I put a scientist from my personal board onto a hex in outer space, and now I get more science every turn.
This game, by using very clever physical design, was able to greatly increase the complexity of the board game without making it no longer a playable board game.
Yeah, it's not as complex as actual Master of Orion, right? Not even close. But it is plenty complex, and they've managed to compact it into less physical bits so that it's actually manageable as a board game, and you can actually get the whole game in your brain. Playing Master of Orion or even Civilization 5 or 4, it's hard to get the whole game in your brain. There's a lot of tiny, tiny stuff that can only be done on a computer, like how many grain are in that one city. I've got 20 cities, right?
This is why I always recommend when people want to learn game theory or study games or game design or anything like that is to do board games, because the physical limitations of the design force you to consider.
When you're playing Master of Orion, you've got 1,000 ships that all have different equipment because they don't all automatically upgrade.
Yep. So
right?
imagine trying to
different shapes and
design
sizes.
a game like Master of Orion. You couldn't even get it in your head to design it. It would take so much playtesting and time.
Let alone
and math.
to even play the combat. It's like, how do you even make decisions, when in that kind of situation?
Another really great mechanic is that the way your upkeep increases is that every time you take an action, you take a disc off of your board and put it on the action you took. You also take discs off the board and put them on hexes you control. the more things you control or do, the more upkeep there is because there are increasingly negative numbers under those discs.
So the bigger your empire is, it's harder for you to take more actions unless you have a lot more money. You need money to do more actions.
Or you can go for it by burning and losing other stuff.
Yeah, you can. 'Cause
Yep, and there's a science economy of building resource enhancements and improvements and different tracks, and it's basically got one little piece of all those kinds of space explory fighty games that everyone loves in one game.
Yeah.
That is a board game that's actually playable.
And it's like when you want to explore outer space to conquer new territory, you flip over new hexes of outer space and add them to the board. When you want to, every turn, we grab more science tiles out of the bag as new sciences are available. So you might be playing with a particular strategy, and that science just doesn't come up. Remember the one game I played, the wrench just never appeared, the nanobots. It's like I wanted to buy nanobots immediately in that game, but they weren't available till very late in the game, even though they're the most basic technology. And it's like, why? Because there's some randomness there that makes every game different. But, the randomness, there is randomness, though, which is, somewhat annoying, is the hex draw, right? If you get a really good hex draw and you explore a lot, it's going to help you. If sciences come up that happen to help you, and it happens to be you going first this time, it helps you. If you're in a combat and the other guy happens to roll 4 6s, it's happened already. Even though you've only played 3 games, it's happened a few times.
Well, this
you
is
might
a
get
situation-
fucked even though you're military superior.
This is a situation where typically games that have a lot of randomness are pretty crappy, and as the randomness goes away, the games get better. And then there's a point at which there's no functional randomness left in the game.
Yep.
And these are games like chess and checkers and Go or Puerto Rico where there's functionally, other than the state of the plantations, no randomness. But then if you keep going, there's this whole other spectrum of games that have randomness because they're more like simulations of real things. I mean, war has a lot of random BS that happens in it.
Yeah,
so
even if you have the best strategy of war, no
dysentery
matter,
might happen.
Yeah,
It might rain.
no matter what you do, shit could happen. And that's why football, real life football or sports, all sports have we got the perfect game plan, we got the perfect players, we got the perfect matchups, we got the perfect plays. And randomness happens.
And
the
there's
guy dropped the
value
ball.
in those games too. I mean, war games and historical simulations are great kinds of games. And this game is just past that threshold where it's starting to have the randomness that actually makes the game fun and interesting, even though it makes it less good of a game from a purely strategic, mathematical game theory. I want to play a perfect game.
I still love the game and want to play it like crazy, but I am frustrated when I attack, one measly alien ship with like 4 interceptors that are upgraded, and I lose because someone rolled a fistful of 6s and I rolled a fistful of 1s, and that was that.
But Scott, aren't you also the exact opposite of that when your one interceptor takes out like the center square?
Yes, but it's incredibly frustrating nonetheless, which makes it not as good as Puerto Rico or Teeny.
The only thing I can say about this game that is negative is that there aren't really a whole bunch of expansions yet for me to play with.
I don't think it really needs expansions. I think the things that are negative about the game are, number one, the setup time is kind of big and it's hard to clean up because you get a lot of pieces.
I'd like more interesting things to run into on the hexes just for like a different flavor of game every now and then.
Well, there is an expansion that was like there's one thing that's like this supernova something that you got at Essen, which we're probably never going to get.
No.
But it added like supernova tiles and a supernova technology or something.
There's
the
also
discovery tiles are usually where all the good action is, like in that department, right?
There's also a really nice mechanic of the game by default. Everyone plays as humans. It's the Terran something. It's all like the Terran Collective, the Terran Republic,
player
the
boards.
Terran Dictatorship, the Terran Democracy.
There are 6 player boards, each a different color, and they all have Terran on one side and an alien race on the other side.
The Terrans are all the same. The aliens are crazy rule breakers. Like they're totally all different from each other.
Yeah, so for example, Rim's the youngest, we'll say. So he gets to pick first. So he picks green. So green, that means he can either be the green humans, which are the same as all the other humans, or he could be the planta, which are the plant-like creatures. Now someone else goes. They pick red. They can be the red humans, the same as all the other humans, or they can be whatever the red guys are. But they can't be the planta, and the planta are different from the red guys, which are different from the black guys, So it's like... it's pretty cool. Like, if you want to be humans, then you want to pick the color, not that you like, which is always going to be green, but that denies the aliens you hate the most from someone else. It's a pretty clever mechanic there.
It is a way fun game, and I highly recommend if you're into...
It's a hard-to-get game. I recommend you go somewhere and pre-order it and pay whatever monies they're asking.
It's a game to get if you like long, drawn-out, dramatic, angry, risk kind of games, but you want a real game to be there.
Yep.
Like, at its core, you want it to be a real, challenging, interesting game.
I get the feeling it might be best to play with 4-player, but I've only played a 6, a 5, and a 3. And the 6 and the 5, more so the 6, right? There was so much competition for hexes and resources that you really, the hex draw mattered a lot more. If you drew like a bunch of, alien ship hexes, you needed to spend some early actions upgrading your ships, whereas someone else who drew a bunch of easy hexes that had a lot of, spots to put cubes got basically easy free expansion, and they could use an action to explore a whole nother tile while you had to use 2 actions to buy some ships and upgrade them or research technology. And as a result, you got less cubes on the board, which slowed you down for the rest of the game and is annoying. In 5-player, it was sort of the same as 6, but a little less so, less annoying. In 3, it was almost too easy. We didn't even explore all the hexes which might have been some strategic mistakes because it's only the 3rd time we played, right?
Yeah, the one game I played in, part of the reason I won is early on, I went way off into interstellar space and got a bunch of victory points. And one person next to me was walled off away from me by alien ships, and the other person, we shared diplomats right away.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the trader card?
I want to finish talking about the Explorer random bit, right? I feel like 4 players would be the best combination of you're actually competing for the resources, right? Because in 3, you're not really competing so much. Like, we didn't fight till the last turn, and then we didn't fight, But in 5, it was almost too tight. It's like I like tight competition, but it's almost too tight to where the randomness means more than the competition. I think 4, I want to play a 4-player game because it would only take 2 hours with people who knew how to play, and I think the competition for resources would be, the right tightness, and the randomness would matter the right amount. And it seems like the internet agrees. They're like 4 players is besto.
Well, it says best with 4 or 6 players.
But it plays 2 to 6, and I'm curious to play the 2 as well, but I think it might be boring and weird.
Yeah, I don't know if there are weird
but
rules.
I do want to
look
try
at it.
There is one rule change. I'm not sure how much of a rule change it is, but we got to try it at least once.
Oh, there's an official Eclipse FAQ for errata and problems.
I'll check that out. So, talk about the trader mechanism.
All right, so if you want to make an alliance with someone, you can do it if you share borders. You give them a diplomat and a cube, and they give you a diplomat and a cube.
So it lets you basically increase one of your things by 1. You can increase your money, science, or materials by 1 cube. That's a pretty good benefit, and you give each other a victory point. So it's basically king-making. It's like we'll both go up and get 1 victory point each, and we'll get ahead of all these other players by 1 point.
So if you betray that alliance by attacking a person you have an alliance with,
which means even putting ships in their hexes, you can't even fly through their space at all.
You take you re-exchange the diplomats, you take your cube back, put it back on your stupid sheet.
You both give each other the victory points back,
and you get the trader card that's worth -2 victory points at the end of the game, and you cannot make any new alliances.
As long as you're holding the trader card.
There's only 1 trader card.
So if
only the last trader is punished like this.
So if someone else is a trader, they take the trader card from you. Now you can make alliances again, and you don't get -2 victory points at the end of the game, which means there's this huge incentive to basically never trader someone, because if you trader someone, you're going to get the trader card. And as soon as you get it, the only reason to do it would be if you were going to gain more than 2 victory points by killing that other guy. In which case, good job. But nobody, once you trader, no one else is going to try to take the trader card from you. Because let's say I attack one of your guys on the second to last turn. It's a 4-point hex. I take the -2. It's a +2 positive, and I have the nukes. And on the last turn, I'm going to be able to just roll you over and get like a bunch more points, right? No one else is going to want to trader now, because that'll basically be giving me 2 victory points, right? And it's like, so basically the first trader is going to be the only trader unless they're going to get so many more victory points that it's worth it for them to take it. But even if they do take it, now suddenly you can make alliances again and get even more points. So it's like, in other games that just have alliances and not alliances, like diplomacy, or whether they're cooperative or not, whether the alliances are enforced by the rules or whether they just agree to be friends like in Risk, you actually have a real reason not to trader someone in this game, and it kind of works. Rim was usually a dick and just traders everyone,
Granted, I only had
didn't
one
take
border,
the trader card.
and as a result, my plan was make an alliance with that person, and then leave my rear undefended and explore interstellar space. And you know what? I won that fucking game.
I realize though, if I'm playing someone in the future, because it's like I think it's going to take a lot of plays to learn the best moves.
Yep.
If anyone leaves their rear undefended to me, I'm going to upgrade my drives. No one in any of the games I've played put a lot of effort into upgrading drives to make their ships move more
Nope.
hexes.
In my game, in fact, I had a gigantic army that could move 1 hex per turn.
Exactly. If someone leaves anything undefended, even if they're my ally, I'm going to get the 4 hex drives and the nukes. And then in 1 turn, all my interceptors will fly through all your empty space where there's nothing but cubes and there's no ships defending it and just kill all your people. And I don't give a shit if I get 2 trader victory points. If I take away 4 or 5 hexes from you, you are fucked. All right? So that's what I'm going to do.
All right. So I didn't want to bring this up in the meta moment because I think we're done. This is the selfish moment. I, as in, my company, I'm looking for a good Linux system administrator.
Hey, got to pay for that advertising.
So if anybody is
no advertising,
a good Linux system administrator,
I'm getting paid for this.
IT, I'd like you to know Windows.
You got to pay double because this is no advertising show.
I don't need any, financial
That'll be
services,
$1
software,
million.
any of that. I just need someone who knows networking and system admin, IT majors in particular. All you RIT kids I know who might be graduating soon, I'm looking at you too.
$1 million is what it costs to advertise in this show.
So let me know.
I'll set up for $100K.
And you would be working for me. And you might enjoy that because
we can be bought, but
I've
it's
been
expensive.
told that I'm pretty cool.
I promise not to advertise in the show ever. You can't
I
be
paid myself $1
advertising.
million for this ad.
No, you got to pay me.
I paid myself
It's
because
also
I
my
did the ad.
show.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.